Distinguished Excellencies, esteemed ambassadors, honorable heads of strategic institutes and research centers, distinguished scholars, dear guests, members of the press, good morning and a warm welcome all of you here in Ankara. Allow me to extend a special welcome to our distinguished guests of honor. Ambassador Togan Oral, Director General for Central Asia and the Organization of Turkic States, His Excellency Professor Ufuk Ulutaş, Ambassador of Turkey in Tashkent, who will join us online, and His Excellency Mr. Ilham Haydarov, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Republic of Uzbekistan to the Republic of Türkiye, His Excellency Javlon Vahab for Central Asia, His Excellency Professor Dr. Ramazan Erda, Director General of the Center for Strategic Research, His Excellency Fathuddin Ospite, Ambassador of Somalia in Ankara, His Excellency Professor Dr. Mehmet Zahid Sobacı, Director General of TRT, we are deeply honored by your presence. It is my distinct honor to welcome you on behalf of the SETA Foundation to the Central Asia Türkiye Forum held under the theme Shared Future in Changing World. We are gathered here today in Ankara to renew a partnership rooted in centuries of shared history, language, and culture, and to translate the deep heritage into a forward-looking strategic vision. We welcome our distinguished guests who have traveled from Uzbekistan and our distinguished guests from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, and beyond joining us online today. Before we will begin, allow me to share a brief note on today's proceedings. Our forum will feature keynote addresses followed by 4 thematic panels and will conclude with the closed roundtable for invited experts. Each panelist will be invited to speak for approximately 10 minutes, after which our moderators will open the floor for discussion. I would also like to note that at the close of the program, our distinguished speakers and moderators will each be with a copy of our journal Inside Turkey as a token of our appreciation. Now to formally open, may I kindly invite to the podium for the welcoming remarks Professor Murat Yeşiltaş of Social Science University of Ankara and Director of Foreign Policies Department at SETA Foundation. Professor.
Good morning, all. Dear Excellencies, distinguished ambassadors, esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is great pleasure and honor to welcome you to the Central Asia Türkiye Forum, Shared Future in a Changing World. On behalf of SETA, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to all our distinguished guests for joining us today. I would like to also express our appreciation to our valued partners, the International Institute for Central Asia and Hasan Kalyoncu University, whose collaboration and commitment have been instrumental in organizing this forum. We gather today at a time when the international system is experiencing profound transformation. Geopolitical competition is intensifying, technological disruption is reshaping economies and societies, global trade routes are being reconfigured, and regional actors are assuming greater responsibility for their own security and prosperity. In such a period of uncertainty and transition, dialogue among trusted partners becomes not only valuable but necessary. The relationship between Turkey and Central Asia is uniquely positioned to respond to these challenges. Our ties are not solely the product of contemporary geopolitical calculations. They are rooted in shared civilizational heritage, common cultural traditions, linguistic affinities, and centuries of interconnected history. These foundations have provided resilience and continuity to our relations while allowing them to evolve in response to new realities. Over the past 3 decades, Turkey and Central Asian republics have steadily expanded cooperation across multiple domains. Political dialogue has deepened, economic relations have grown, connectivity initiatives have multiplied, and educational and cultural exchange have brought our societies closer together. The rise of Central Asia as a geopolitical and geoeconomic crossroads is one of the most important developments of our era. Positioned between Europe and Asia, the region is becoming increasingly central to discussion on connectivity, energy security, transportation corridors, supply chains, and regional stability. At the same time, Central Asian states are demonstrating greater strategic agency and confidence in shaping their own futures. For Türkiye, this transformation presents significant opportunities. As a country that connects regions, markets, and strategic spaces, Türkiye views Central Asia not merely as a neighboring region of historical importance, but as a vital partner in building a more connected, prosperous, and stable Euro-Asian landscape. At the same time, our cooperation should not be understood solely through economic and geopolitical lenses. The future of our relation will also depend on our ability to invest in knowledge production, academic cooperation, technological innovation, and the development of future generations. Forums such as this one contribute to that objective by creating opportunities for dialogue among policymakers, scholars, and experts who are shaping the intellectual foundation of our common future. The growing institutionalization of cooperation among Turkic states further demonstrates the maturity of these relations. What was once primarily a cultural and historical connection is increasingly becoming a platform for strategic coordination, economic cooperation, and regional problem solving. The theme of today's forum, Shared Future in a Changing World, captures this reality perfectly. The question before us is not simply how we adapt to change. The more important question is how we can shape change together. How can we transform our historical connection into strategic opportunities? How can we strengthen cooperation in areas such as trade, energy, connectivity, technology, education, and security? These are the questions that will guide our discussion today. Before concluding, I could once again like to thank the International Institute for Central Asia, the SETA Foundation, and Hasan Kalyoncu University. I wish you productive discussion and a successful forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Yeşiltaş, for those gracious words of welcome. We now move to the keynote segment of our program, where we have the privilege of hearing from a distinguished panel of statesmen, diplomats, and institutional leaders who have shaped and continue to shape the Central Asia-Türkiye partnership. It is my honor to first invite to the podium Professor Nebi Mish, General Coordinator of the SETA Foundation.
Excellencies, distinguished ambassadors, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, it is a pleasure to welcome you all. I would like to thank our hosts, especially Excellencies Javlan Vakabov from International Institute for Central Asia, and also thank Murat Aslan from Kalyoncu University and SETA. Also, I would like to thank on my own institution, the SETA Foundation, for bringing us together today. Future of Turkey and Central Asia. A few months ago, Professor Yeşiltaş presented the main figures and trends, rather than repeating those numbers. I would like to focus on different aspects of our discussion today. The strategic meaning behind the number and what it will take to make this partnership stronger and more sustainable. Let me begin with history. For many years after 1991, our shared history and cultural ties represented a great opportunity. But that opportunity remained more of a promise than a concrete program. The real change began after 2016. The strong political commitment and regular dialogue among our leaders transformed shared identity into political cooperation. The best example of this transformation is the organization of Turkic state. Through the Gabala summit last October, where I was also part of it, together with Strategy 2026 and Vision 2040, the organization has presented a clear framework for deeper cooperation among the member states. That includes energy integration, the Turkic Investment Fund, and efforts toward a regional development bank. When Azerbaijan joined the Central Asian consultative meetings last November, this framework expanded further. The South Caucasus and Central Asia moved closer together as part of wider strategic neighborhood, with Turkey serving as a natural bridge between them. Why does this matter today? Because the global economy is changing. Supply chains are being reorganized. Energy routes are being redrawn. Transportation networks are being redesigned. In such an international environment, partnership built on trust and shared values become more than cultural connections. They become strategic advantages. Let me explain this through two areas: energy and critical minerals. In energy, Turkey is becoming what it has long aimed to be, a true energy hub. The Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline began carrying Kazakh oil in 2008 and Turkmen volumes in 2010. In 2025 alone, around 27 million tons of crude oil were loaded through Ceyhan. Kazakhstan is now increasing exports through this route and has expressed ambition to expand those volumes significantly in the coming years. In natural gas, the Trans-Anatolian pipeline is being prepared for expansion. Its capacity is expected to grow from 16 billion cubic meters per year to more than 30 billion. At the same time, Türkiye, Azerbaijan, and Turkmenistan are working together to bring Turkmen gas across the Caspian Sea. We should also consider the Trans-Caspian Green Energy Corridor. This project will connect Central Asian electricity networks to Azerbaijan and from there to Turkey and Europe. Taken together, these projects point to the emergence of major energy bridge serving both producers and consumers. The importance of critical minerals is even more striking. Today, one country produces around 60% of the world's rare earth elements and carries out almost 90% of global refining. These level of concentration Cooper. Uzbekistan is developing new deposits of lithium, tungsten, and germanium. The opportunity for Turkey and the countries of the region is not simply to extract and export these resources. The real opportunity is to develop refining, processing, and manufacturing capacity together. In other words, the goal should be to move higher in the value chain rather than remain at its starting point. That is the difference between exporting raw materials and creating strategic partnership. But there is one point I would particularly like to emphasize. I say this as someone who has spent much of his professional life in policy research. Infrastructure alone does not integrate regions. Investment alone does not integrate regions. Pipelines can be built. Trade targets can be announced. Yet partnership often struggle when understanding does not keep pace with ambitions. What transforms geographical proximity into genuine partnership is shared analysis. It requires common assessment of risk. It requires compatible regulatory frameworks. And it requires a shared understanding of where the world is heading. This is exactly where institutions such as those represented in this room become important. The role of think tank is to transform data into foresight and foresight into practical policy. Their task is to produce knowledge that governments, business, and societies can use. This form serves precisely that purpose. It creates an intellectual bridge between decision-making and implementation. Let me also speak frankly. Strong partnership require honest conversations. The achievements are significant, but important challenges remain. The middle corridor still carries only a limited share of the volume transported through competing routes. Infrastructure financing remains below the level required by our ambitions. Tariffs, customs, producers, and regulatory barriers continue to slow the movement of goods that geography suggests should move much faster. Recognize these challenges is not a sign of pessimism. It is the starting point of serious cooperation. Let me conclude by returning to our main theme. History has given us common roots. The future, however, depends on the choices we make together. The figures discussed today tell the story of a region that it's gaining importance of confidence. Whether this rise becomes lasting and shared prosperity will depend on the quality of our cooperation. It will also depend on the quality of our ideas and our long-term vision. That is why gatherings like this matter. That is why we are here today. I look forward to our discussion and I thank you for your kind attention. Thank you very much. Welcome to TETA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. I now have the honor to invite His Excellency Mr. Javlon Vahapov, Deputy Advisor to the President of the Republic of Uzbekistan and Director of International Institute for Central Asia. Excellency.
So many mics here. Well, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's my absolute delight and distinct pleasure to be in Ankara for the first time for the Central Asia Türkiye Think Tank Forum. And first and foremost, I would like to extend my gratitude to Professor Nish and his excellent team at the SETA Foundation who made this event possible today. And my big thanks go to the Hasan Konochli University, a co-organizer of today's event as well. And I think there couldn't be a better time to get together, as Uzbekistan, along with other Central Asian countries, are about to celebrate the 35th anniversary of our independence. And we still recall how Turkiye has been staying at the forefront, among others, supporting for Central Asian countries independence, territorial integrity, and sovereignty. All those values which our people share together. And Turkey was the first country to recognize the independence of the Central Asian states back in 1991. And since then, Turkey has consistently supported the independence, stability, and prosperity in our broader region. For Central Asian countries, Turkey has always been a close friend, a bridge to wider markets, an important political, economic, and cultural partner as well. And by now, Turkey has emerged as an influential actor across the Middle East, the South Caucasus, the wider Euro-Asian space, making important contributions to regional connectivity and dialogue. Ankara has also become one of the key strategic partners linked to the region by common interests in promoting sustainable development. And today we are entering a new stage. Since 2017, Central Asia has changed significantly, and regional dialogue has intensified, borders have opened, trade has grown, and our common regional identity has become stronger. And Central Asia is no longer only a geographic expression. It's becoming a consolidated political and economic space with its own voice, interests, and priorities. And the region's geography is also expanding. So the Tashkent summit of November 2025 marked a historic step, with Azerbaijan joining the regional cooperation format known as the consultative meetings of the heads of states of Central Asia, and having a full-fledged status within this format. And this gives the traditional C5 framework a broader C6 dimension. And so in these terms, I would say we're no longer C5. We have already turned our format to C6, which creates new opportunities for deeper cooperation with Turkey through the South Caucasus, the broader Caspian region, and energy links and transport corridors. And within this broader regional context, Uzbekistan-Turkey relations have matured into comprehensive strategic partnership, driven by the strong political will, strategic vision, and personal commitment of President Shavkat Mirziyoyev and President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Dear colleagues, so today Central Asia is developing more than a dozen Central Asia plus formats with major global and regional partners. And in these terms, I would say that Central Asia has been engaging over the past decade with more than 40 countries, including 2 regional organizations, which are the European Union and the Gulf Cooperation Council. So the countries where more than 75% of the world GDP is generated, and countries where more than 4 billion people are currently residing. So in these terms, as Central Asia is still opening up to the rest part of the world, our partners are still approaching the region. So with our shared agenda and those priorities, we highly value. And this is why the Central Asia-Turkey format is so important. It does not replace the Organization of Turkic States, certainly the Economic Cooperation Organization, and also the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, along with the Shanghai Cooperation Organizations. So the Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation Program and other regional platforms. Rather, it can complement them by bringing together all Central Asian countries and Turkey around a focused practical agenda covering economy, investment, technology, energy, transport connectivity, education, and culture. So in this sense, the forum should become an expert mechanism. We believe that connects political will with practical implementation. So the first topic which comes to my mind certainly is related to the economic foundation of our partnership, which becomes quite stronger. So the trade between Turkey and Central Asia has more than doubled since 2018, from around $6 billion to $14.5 billion in 2025. So the next target is $30 billion by 2030. And this is ambitious, but we believe quite a realistic goal to achieve. And Turkish investment in Central Asia has also grown so rapidly. From 2016 to 2024, it increased to, 2.5 times, from $1.1 billion to around $3 billion. The number of Turkish companies operating in the region grew from around 4,000 in 2016 to more than 7,000 by 2025. And this shows that Turkey is not only a trade partner, it's becoming an investor, builder, producer, logistics and technology partner for all Central Asian countries. Topic number 2 certainly is related to connectivity, which is the backbone of the Central Asia-Turkey partnership. The middle corridor, which has been mentioned by Professor Mish, is no longer only an alternative road. It's becoming a strategic economic artery linking China, Central Asia, the Caspian Sea, the South Caucasus, Turkey, and Europe. And according to international assessments, the middle corridor has the potential to triple freight volumes and half travel time by 2030 if the right investments and policy reforms are implemented. Cargo flows has already increased significantly in recent years. Container transportation is also growing, with further expansion expected by the end of the decade. And for Central Asia, so this is a historic opportunity to overcome landlocked geography. For Türkiye, it strengthens its role as a Euro-Asian transport and logistics hub. For Azerbaijan and the South Caucasus, it creates new transit and industrial opportunities. For Europe and Asia, it creates a more diversified and resilient supply chain. But we should be realistic. So the middle corridor will not become fully competitive automatically. It requires synchronized tariffs, digital documentation, predictable customs procedures, efficient Caspian shipping, modern port infrastructure, multimodal logistics centers, and better coordination among railways, ports, and private operators. And this is another reason why the Central Asia-Turkey Forum is important. We need expert level work on where the corridor losses time, where costs increase, where documentation is duplicated, and where private investment is mobilized. So connectivity should also be understood more broadly in our understanding. It includes not only railways and ports, but also aviation, digital infrastructure, energy grids, so fiber optic lines, financial connectivity, and people-to-people mobility. And recent developments in the Middle East have once again shown how closer regional connectivity is linked to global stability. And taking this opportunity, I can't fail to acknowledge a peace agreement which President Trump signed yesterday in Versailles, France, making sure that this long-awaited peace and stability is brought to the Middle East and to Iran in particular. So in this regard, so we also welcome the U.S.-Iran agreement signed yesterday, as I have mentioned.
Very good morning, distinguished ambassador colleagues, speakers, guests. I would like to start with some maybe little strange thing. This morning I was watching game between Uzbekistan and Colombia in the World Cup football. We lost, sorry for this, but the fight was good. And the score is not reflecting. Because, the last moment few shoots should be, resulted, but okay. I know that my friends in Turkey also little lost against Australia, but we are still gaining, and I'm really proud. Uzbekistan is the first time in this World Cup, and Turkey is the leading, of course, but I saw how Turkic world or all friends united for our teams in the US. This kind of thing is also quite good for theme of our today's discussion. Of course, I'm very proud to be here today among intellectual think tanks. And what I would like to deliver, of course, my friend and my colleague Javan Wahabov already mentioned broad vision. But in today's world, in today's digital world, we are communicating through some means, and this is face-to-face communications, I hope will bring some more impetus. And of course, I have a special thanks to SETA Foundation, because, I'm spending already 1 year in Turkey, and I'm following very carefully your foundation. The outcome which you are presenting, it is very precise, detailed, and solid. And I really wish that we are in Uzbekistan, like our Central Asia institution or some other institutions will be interconnecting to shape those development. And of course, we have to do this because otherwise someone will do it. That is why I really urge us to be as close as possible and trying to make ourselves ready to discuss and ready to cooperate. I have to tell you that within last half a year or something like this, relations between Uzbekistan and Turkey developed a lot. We had this on 29th of January, outstandingly good visit of our president to Turkey, to Ankara. During this visit, we start new school in Istanbul, and I have to say that Hatay development in Uzbekistan, Mahala, was also tremendous. And last Saturday, our speaker, Ismailov, was here, and together with the speaker, Kurtulmuş, they are opening. This is political side, but also this is human side of our relations. Or Minister of Foreign Affairs of Uzbekistan 3 times was in Turkey, and meeting his counterpart very regularly. So they're exchanging the vision, they're shaping on a more formal way, and we are here, I hope, we'll try to make some basement for their future steps. And on the economy side, as my colleague already mentioned, we are doing even bigger steps, like today, yesterday and today, the Tashkent International Investment Forum, and Turkey delegation led by Minister Bolat is there. Among our Central Asia friends, like they are represented by their prime ministers, head of government. So it is about 6,000 participants, 4,000 foreign participants, and the level of those gathering is very high. It's showing that Central Asia, Uzbekistan becoming focus point of the world, because there are European big representation of US. We, with Mr. Wahabov, remember the time when US was blocking Uzbek cotton. And it is his personal approach. So we managed to overcome this. And when today's American companies coming to Uzbekistan and trying to make huge business, I'm not saying big business, but huge business, it shows and it says something already. So, and in this world, it worth it. And today, Professor Mish mentioned about strategic minerals or energy or logistic. So Central Asia, or without Central Asia, none of those questions can be sorted out. And we are very happy to be proud of one bigger, wider family with Turkic world, with Türkiye. And today the connectivity is becoming very important issue. And connectivity is not just the physical connectivity. I mentioned about human connectivity, but it is also digital connectivity. This is also working quite well. And we are using Türkiye as a very important platform for our trade. Figures was there, but in today's world, when some corridors are closing, some corridors are enhancing. So maybe it is challenges, but at the same time, it is opportunity. And I really hope that by the end of today's forum, it will be some interesting points. And I would like just to put some kind request, which was already partly put it here. What I would like to see at the outcome of this forum, like looking ahead, we see several priority directions, like expanding trade investment cooperation with a focus on practical projects. It could be infrastructure, it could be energy, it could be critical minerals, any of those. Strengthening transport, logistic, and digital connectivity. Deepening cooperation within the organization of Turkic states and other multilateral platform. This is a very good opportunities. Development of joint analytical, academic, and expert network. We are in embassy facing sometimes in short of those analytical research. That is why we are begging professional experts to provide those information to us. And of course, promoting innovation, green development, artificial intelligence, and cooperation among young professionals. I'm insisting on the young professional. I'm becoming myself a little aged maybe, but Uzbekistan population is very young. We are adding 1 million a year. We are 38.5 today. We are close to 40, and it is second biggest population, and 60% of those population are young. In this regard, the role of think tanks is becoming especially important. And government defining strategic priorities, but analytical centers help transform them into concrete ideas, roadmaps, policy recommendation. They can identify risk, propose new formats of cooperation, and build intellectual bridge between our societies. I'm confident that the forum will contribute to a deeper understanding of common challenges and open a new opportunities for cooperation between Central Asia and Turkey. Uzbekistan remains firmly committed to further strengthening its strategic partnership with Turkey and to advancing a broader, more connected and more prosperous Central Asia-Turkey agenda. Together, relying on our mutual trust, brotherhood, and shared vision, we can build a common future that is stable, dynamic, and successful. Thank you very much.
For our final keynote address, it's my honor to invite His Excellency Professor Ulutaj, Ambassador. Okay, thank you again, Ambassador. For our final keynote address, it is my honor to invite His Excellency Professor Ulutaj, Ambassador of Turkey in Tashkent. His Excellency will join us online.
Well, distinguished colleagues, dear friends, it's a great pleasure to be here with you today. And assalamu alaikum from a rainy day here in Tashkent. Let me begin by
We can't hear you now. Can you just wait a moment? Could you check if your microphone is open? Okay, I think we could try it in a few minutes again. Should we continue? Okay. We extend our sincere gratitude to all other distinguished keynote speakers for setting the tone and vision for today's discussion. We will now proceed to our first thematic panel, and if we can do the panel with Mr. Ufuk Ultaş, we will join him again. Our first panel is entitled Economic Partnerships and Investment, Expanding Trade Investment and Corporate Engagement. Trade between Turkey and Central Asia has grown remarkably in recent years. Oh, okay, he's back. Okay, Mr. Ultaş, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you too.
All right. All right.
So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, distinguished colleagues, dear friends, sorry for the problems in connectivity. We are working on that connectivity on both levels, also both internet and also the connectivity that we will be talking about in a second between Central Asia and Turkey and beyond. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. And let me begin by thanking SETA, Hasan Kalyoncu University and the International Institute for Central Asia for organizing this excellent event. I'm especially pleased to participate in this event because, as you know, I have been part of the SETA family for many years. Bringing together scholars, experts, the policymakers from different countries is particularly valuable at a time when the international environment is becoming more uncertain and in many respects more difficult to navigate. I am genuinely delighted to be part of this discussion, and I'm quite happy to see friends both here in Tashkent and also from Ankara. And I also second my counterpart in Ankara, İlham Eke, when he said today the score did not reflect the actual effort on the pitch. I wish success to both Uzbekistan and also Turkey in the World Cup. When we talk about Turkey and Uzbekistan relations, one phrase appears very often: a relationship with great potential. I would argue that we should perhaps stop using this phrase because today we are no longer discussing potential. We are discussing actual results. And over the last several years, relationship between Turkey and Uzbekistan have expanded rapidly. Political dialogue has intensified, economic ties have deepened, institutional mechanisms have multiplied, and cooperation has become much broader than it was even a decade ago. What makes this particularly interesting is the timing. This partnership is developing at a moment when the international system itself is going through a period of profound change. We still hear frequent references to rule-based international order, yet when we look at international politics today, what we often see is something different. Rules continue to exist, but their application has been very selective. International institutions continue to function, but their authority is frequently challenged. As a result, uncertainty has become one of the defining characteristics of global politics. I think this point is important because uncertainty is no longer a temporary condition. It is increasingly becoming the normal operating environment for states. For countries such as Turkey and Uzbekistan, this creates a common challenge. How to strategize when maintaining productive relations with multiple partners at the same time. And this is where the two countries increasingly merge. What I find particularly striking about Turkey-Uzbekistan relations is that they're not built on one single foundation. Of course, there are clear economic interests. Trade is growing, investment is increasing, and both sides see opportunities in connectivity, infrastructure, and regional development. There is also, as you know, a cultural dimension. Shared Turkic heritage creates familiarity and trust. Culture alone cannot sustain international partnerships, but it can make cooperation easier and more sustainable. And then there is the institutional dimension that speakers also spoke about, which we often overlook. Mechanisms such as the High-Level Strategic Cooperation Council and the Organization of Turkic States, one continuously in relationship. They ensure that cooperation is not dependent solely on personal relations or temporary political circumstances. Together, these different layers make the relationship more resilient. At the same time, it is impossible to discuss the current trajectory of bilateral relations without mentioning the transformation taking place here in Uzbekistan. Since 2016, Uzbekistan has become remarkable change. The country has become more open economically, more active diplomatically, and much more engaged in diplomacy. What's striking is not only the scale of this transformation, but also at which it has taken place. Perhaps the most important result has been the emergence of a more cooperative regional environment regulation. It's a relationship in which both countries
Dear Ambassador, Excellency, can you hear me? Can you hear me? So we have problems to listen to you because you freeze because of the connection. Could you sum up in one sentence that we could understand you?
Okay. Can I try again?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, I was talking about the personal relationship between the two leaders. Can you hear me clearly?
Okay, we to hear you. I would thank you in this place and apologize for the connection. We thank Mr. Ufuk Ulutaş despite the difficulties, and we extend our sincere gratitude to all our distinguished keynote speakers for setting the tone and vision for today's discussion. We will now proceed to our first thematic panel. Our first panel is entitled Economic Partnership and Investment, Expanding Trade, Investment and Cooperated Engagement. Trade between Turkey and Central Asia has grown remarkably in recent years, and this session will explore how momentum can be sustained and deepened. Moderating this panel is Associate Professor Murat Aslan of Hasan Kalyoncu University and the SETA Foundation. He will be joined by our distinguished speakers, Associate Professor Harun Türker Kara of Ankara Medipol University and SETA Foundation, Mr. Eldor Sobiri, Development Strategy Center of Uzbekistan, and Mr. Kakatjan Berdiev, co-founder and managing partner of Maslahatçılar Consulting Company of Turkmenistan. Cem, your floor.
Distinguished guests, first of all, after having some technical failures, I think there was an internet connection failure over there. Let's continue with the panel one because we know that there's a lot ongoing right now in Central Asia, and there's a difference. Once you go and check exactly what's happening in the other areas of the globe, mainly the Gulf region, Europe, well, maybe to some extent and most extent Africa, we have the agenda of conflicts, war, competitions, but Central Asia has a distinct place right now. Once you check the news on daily basis, and I do it, formation, prosperity, investments, economy, consultations of private enterprises, and projects like green energy, AI, data centers, for instance. Well, they are on the agendas of all Central Asian states right now. And it's a very distinct and we have to understand what sort of economic partnerships in the frame of opportunities do exist, what sort of investment cooperation engagements do exist and will maybe meet in future. Must be the issue, should be first prioritized in a panel or in a forum like this. And I believe that, as you remember the numbers circulated by Mr. Ambassadors, I mean, $14 billion as the existing level of trade and with an expectation of $30 billion. And I'm optimistic in achieving it because the energy is a multiplier effect, minerals multiplying effect, also trade, because think that especially if you put together Türkiye and the Central Asian countries all together, well, there's a great number of companies in the region investing right now. So we will discuss these optimistic picture, maybe with a touch to what to do and how to do list with distinguished guests. The first guest on my left is Dr. Harun Türker Kara, a member of SETA Foundation as researcher and also faculty member at Ankara Medipol University. He has focused on financial and governance structures of the real and banking sectors, and also he has an experience in Turkish Central Bank and also TÜBİTAK. Mr. Eldor Tulyakov, Director of the Development Strategy Center in Uzbekistan, and also he's a leading voice on governance and investment policy, and a former member of Uzbekistan's Legislative Chamber. And also we have an online guest from Turkmenistan, Mr. Kakacan Berdiev, co-founder and managing partner of Maslahatçılar Consulting in Turkmenistan, who works at the intersection of private sector development, public-private partnerships, investment, and trade politics. So after this brief introduction, if you allow me, I will give speakers 10 minutes on specific issues, and then I expect questions from the audience. Please take note and do not hesitate to wonder. And in this sense, I would like to start with Dr. Kara. Well, I think first we need to understand the overall picture in the region. The economy, finance sector, trade, and then we can identify the bottlenecks and we can search exactly what to do list. Because Central Asia, Turkey is an extension, but with a touch to China, Russia, Europe, and now the United States is in this picture. As you know, there's a triple corridor project. It's very important. So would you please tell us exactly what the situation is? What's the great and grand picture? Thank you so much, Professor Aslan. Good morning all again, dear colleagues, esteemed academies, researchers, and all guests. And also I want to mention it again, I am very happy to hear today. And today, as Dr. Aslan said, I talk about the topic that becoming more and more important, which is how Central Asia shapes its economy, especially how Central Asia trades with world and how economies of them complex. First of all, I briefly discuss the term of economics complexity, and then I will focus on detailed country by country, but with a general perspective. After that, after talking about the country specific features, we will talk about general point of feature. As older opening remarks talked about, yes, we have maybe common past, and I hope that we have collaborative future as well. Let me start with a simple question. If we talk about Central Asia, what we see, what we talk about, maybe in the opening remarks, and Professor Aslan said us, we talk about natural sources, oil, gas, maybe gold, cotton. Yes, raw materials that are come out of the ground and go to other countries. But this is whole story, and this is valid for all the countries, all the Central Asia as well. In the next minutes, I will talk about through 30 years of data, nearly 30 years of data, looking at the 5 countries. The main point of this presentation is that the Central Asia economics are not the same economies, maybe different in some aspects. We will focus on about this. First of all, I will focus on 2 ideas, export dynamics, but also economic complexity. I will talk about not what the countries sell, but how they sell it, to whom sell it, and what tells about it this procedure to us. I will not only share data, I will also explain, I will also try to explain what data can we talk about a policymaker, think takers as well. First of all, I want to talk about the well-known economic data from Harvard Atlas production, what is economic complexity. If you look at the figures, we understand that Japan is the first 4 measures. Keep in mind and we can try to understand the concept easily from there. For a long time, also economists, we talk about GDP growth, exports, or investment. These numbers are important and still important, of course, but we talk about further of them. Instead of asking how much country exports, we ask what kind of products, what kind of services country can make and sell competitively and connectivity. Small but big differences here. The Economic Complex Index measures how diverse and sophisticated countries' exports are. A country that exports, let's say, medical equipment, industrial machines, blah, blah, blah, complexity is really a measure of the knowledge a country has built up. We see that, let's say, Kazakhstan goes from 77th range to 17th. And here is maybe I can understand, I'm so sorry, Kazakhstan is 77 to 55. And if you look at Uzbekistan, let's say, it is nearly below the top 100, but now it goes to 17. So this kind of measure, can we give clues as the country's economic situation? This brings us to most important findings of our study. Look at this picture. Central Asia is not one economy, but different economies, different development paths are going in different directions. Look at the Kazakhstan, first of all. If you look at the Kazakhstan, in the bottom panel, we see the Kazakhstan's exporting countries. The export numbers of Kazakhstan are very clear. nearly $31 billion. And it is mainly comes from oils, 5 million of that. But this kind of import structure, for example, gold has nearly 6 billion trade export volume. These kind of export structures comes a question. What is that? If countries' income depends so heavily on global commodity prices in the war period, as we see that, it has no control over sudden changes. Let's say when oil price drops, government income falls, or vice versa. This is also same for precious metals, still leading the export panel. So this kind of model maybe works in short run, but maybe for development path, it may be more questionable. So the real question is that maybe Kazakhstan and for all the Central Asian economics, will Kazakhstan's place for diversification actually change? And how? In the next 30 years, Kazakhstan maybe make the technological leadership. It's for nearly the same story for the Kyrgyzstan. You see as well, bottom panel, the top exporting countries for Kazakhstan. Who imported from Kyrgyzstan products in the upper side. But the story also same for the Kazakhstan. Maybe it is sharper if you look at its production size. What's interesting is that this is also trade growth story. In recent years, both imports and exports have grown sharply, with export destinations now including Russia, China, EU, and United Arab Emirates, UAE. Kyrgyzstan face an also important choice. Should it continue really mainly on gold, or should it broader economic capacities? The answer shapes also its future. Uzbekistan, interesting one is its diversification, its economic complexity increases more. And its scores of economic complexity increases nearly 60 points for the recent years. Unlike the other countries that heavily tied on to one commodity, Uzbekistan built capacities more than macro across multiple sectors, not a single commodity, but multiple sectors. These sectors are not high as complex as global, but this is a good way for Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan moved toward the real structure change, yes, but is it continue or not? Show the figures later. Turkmenistan is an interesting case here. It seems one partner, one commodity case, and it's also need diversificate its economic structure. Tajikistan, last country for today I will talk about, it is the smallest economy in this graph. It is also need for automotive, a strategic material used batteries and semiconductors. Maybe all Central Asia countries potential were not global, not all energy, but hydrocarbon, critical raw materials as well. But they also trading. I do not talk about literally touch the sales, but commodity-based economy have some problems. All of the Central Asia countries going forward, but they need to try to make best. Yes, this is a nearly similar pace for nearly similar export destination, primary export anchors, and general economic trajectory. Yes, I talked about that. I will maybe some corrections here, but Uzbekistan may be differentiated at the first sight here. We see that that's may only. Oops. Yes. I conclude, and I will talk about maybe Turkish roles and the direction of the Central Asia's economics. Two more things. yes, we see that some countries became more complex, while others stayed dependent on a smaller number of products, which is that smaller number of products, not a maybe material based, but a smaller number of products is key element here. The answer, how can we enlarge their product numbers? The answer is capability development. And we talk about maybe later from this session, maybe my colleagues Eldor says about some different things about this. Countries try to grow, they build knowledge, skills, institution, yes, collaboration of each other may be important. The data shows, but clearly the data shows progress is happening in Central Asia, but different speeds. Maybe as a think tanker, we talk about how can we accelerate this situation, maybe talk about this. And economic complexity, I want to conclude that economics complexity give us strong framework for understanding this process and this development. All our colleagues talk about the role of Turkey as well. And I want to say again, we have maybe similar past, common past. And if we share future, it will be good for all for us. Maybe. Professor, thank you so much. You know, if I'm together with economists, you know, I'm always excited because they know how to depict the numbers. And economists are much, and also money is much more mechanical with no emotions. On the other hand, politics, international politics is blended with the emotions. I mean, this is a clear, distinct difference between both. And these numbers and these graphs tell a lot. For instance, if you tell me something about natural resources, well, economy in terms of maximum gaining from the processing, from the productions is one leg, especially on rare earth minerals, because I know that there's a great deposit in this region. And there's a variety of minerals. I mean, not only single one, not several one. But we have to care societal concerns, environmental concerns, and logistics. In this sense, the mechanics should be the dominant issue in assessing. So let me touch to Uzbekistan then, because Mr. Tulyakov, as an Uzbek think tanker, as an Uzbek bureaucrat, and also a member of the parliament, former member of the parliament, how do you situate Uzbekistan in this picture and Central Asia? I know that it was last year, there were a lot of gatherings within the frame of C5, then C6, the United States, Japan, Russia, China. I think we are expecting another one with Germans. So think that if all these countries are convening such sort of events under the label of C5 or C6 after the inclusion of Azerbaijan, so what must be the roadmap or program, and from what points should we build a progress favoring the countries in the region rather than the countries interested in? Please. Please, please.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. The gentlemen, representatives of the government, diplomatic corps, I would like to thank the organizers, especially SETA Foundation, for organizing this wonderful event. We very much value the cooperation and relationship with our Turkish partners, including SETA Foundation, and we are happy that the MOU that we have signed with SETA several years ago is working in practice. It's an honor to address this distinguished gathering. Uzbekistan and Türkiye are connected by much more than economic interests. We should specifically say that our relations are founded upon shared history, just like my colleague mentioned, cultural affinity, mutual respect, and a high level of, very important to say, political trust. Today, however, the strength of this relationship must be ability to translate this political understanding into economic results. new enterprises, technologies, skilled jobs, transport routes, modern cities, and international products. And here we have heard earlier a very broad picture of the region, a very complex analysis, talk in detail about the specific directions, specific areas of cooperation that we need to consider between Uzbekistan and Turkey. Uzbekistan-Turkey relations have entered a qualitatively new stage. Our cooperation now covers trade, investment, energy, manufacturing, construction, agriculture, logistics, tourism, digital technologies, and direct corporate interactions. The political will is strong, the institutional framework is in place, the private sector is increasingly active. Our central task is therefore clear. We must turn this favorable political environment into deeper interdependence and a more sophisticated model of partnership. Ladies and gentlemen, between 2017 and 2025, bilateral trade doubled, reaching approximately $3 billion in 2025. Turkey remains one of Uzbekistan's leading economic partners. This is significant progress, but it is also a fact that the full potential of our relationship has yet to be realized. Our leaders have set the objective of increasing bilateral trade to $5 billion. This target is achievable, but it requires more than selling larger quantities of existing products through current channels. It requires a structural transformation in the cooperation, especially taking into account what has been already mentioned and especially addressed as a question. Uzbekistan exports industrial materials, metals, yarn, and transport services to Turkey. Turkey supplies Uzbekistan with machinery, transport equipment, chemicals, industrial products, and finished goods. This reflects the complementary strengths of our economies. Turkey possesses advanced industrial capacity, experienced companies, strong engineering and management expertise, and broad access to international markets. Uzbekistan offers a rapidly expanding market, a young and increasingly skilled population, significant natural resources, competitive production conditions, and access to the wider Central Asian region. But complementary alone does not create integration. Our goal should therefore be to move from a conventional buyer-seller relationship towards joint production, shared technologies, integrated supply chains, and coordinated access to third-country markets. We should move beyond simple trade. We should produce together, innovate together, and compete. This approach fully corresponds to the updated Uzbekistan 2030 strategy. By 2030, Uzbekistan aims to ensure annual growth of at least 15% in non-gold exports and raise the share of finished and semi-finished products in exports to 70%. These are more than statistical targets, we should note. They mean that Uzbekistan intends to export fewer unprocessed resources and more products that embody skilled labor, technology, engineering, design, and branding. This is precisely where cooperation with Turkey can have a transformative impact in our view. Turkey has developed global competitive industries in textiles, household appliances, automotive components, machinery, construction materials, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and food processing. Uzbekistan possesses substantial production and resource potential in many of the same sectors. By combining these strengths, we can create complete value chains, from raw materials and primary processing to components, finished products, branding, logistics, and international distribution. This would generate not only greater trade turnover, but also genuine industrial capability. Ladies and gentlemen, the strategy 2030 also aims to increase the number of exporting enterprises in Uzbekistan to 15,000 and the number of export-oriented companies applying international standards to 5,000. An export-oriented economy cannot depend on a few large corporations. It requires thousands of small and medium-sized enterprises, regional manufacturers, agricultural producers, technology firms, and service providers. For Uzbek-Turkish cooperation, this means moving beyond partnerships between major corporations and state institutions. We need direct connections between thousands of businesses. Turkish companies can act not only as investors, but also as buyers, distributors, technology providers, and partners for Uzbek firms entering international markets. At the same time, Turkish SMEs can use Uzbekistan as a production and distribution platform for Central Asia. A permanent digital industrial cooperation platform could help companies identify suppliers, exchange technical requirements, and establish joint ventures. Business forums should also become more practical and sector-specific. Their success should not be measured only by the number of speeches delivered, but by purchase orders, supply agreements, investment decisions, and production partnerships. Market access today depends not only on price, it also depends on quality, certification, environmental standards, reliable delivery, and compliance with international requirements. Joint testing laboratories, certification centers, and technical training programs could help Uzbek companies enter Turkish, European, and other international markets. Import policy must also be approached strategically. The objective is not to artificially reduce imports. Modern economies need imported technologies, machinery, components, and specialized services. The real objective is to ensure that imports contribute to productivity and long-term development. Imports should become the first stage of localization. The import of Turkish machinery can lead to service centers, spare parts production, engineering facilities, and eventually joint manufacturing in Uzbekistan. The import of pharmaceuticals lead to local laboratory and production training. This is how imports can become a channel of technological transformation. Uzbekistan intends to raise industrial value added to $60 billion by 2030 and create 1.8 million jobs. These targets require technology, skilled employment, energy efficiency, modern management, and deeper integration between domestic and international companies. Uzbekistan therefore wants investments that bring not only capital but also technology, engineering expertise, research capacity, expert networks, and professional skills. Uzbekistan is particularly interested in projects that create industrial ecosystems by involving local suppliers, training workers, and supporting smaller businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, several factors offer especially promising opportunities. In textiles, Uzbekistan is shifting from yarn and primary materials to fabrics, finished garment, technical textiles, design, and branding. Turkiye's advanced textile ecosystem makes it an ideal partner in this transformation. In pharmaceuticals, Turkish experience can support joint manufacturing, research laboratories, and regional distribution. In agriculture and food processing, cooperation can help Uzbekistan move from exporting seasonal products towards processed foods, branded products, and year-round supplies. Because the strategy of Uzbekistan aims to increase agriculture products to $10 billion and agro-logistics capacity to 2.5 million tons. This will require modern storage, cold chains, packaging, certification, and distribution, areas in which Turkey has extensive experience. Energy cooperation is also developing successfully. Turkish-supported power projects in the Tashkent and Sirdarya region have helped strengthen Uzbekistan's electricity system. The next stage should include renewable energy, grid modernization, energy-efficient manufacturing, and the localization of energy. Urban development should become another major pillar of our cooperation. Because Uzbekistan wants to construct over 140,000 units of houses by 2030. And we should note that Turkish companies already play active role in changing the face of Uzbekistan, the image of Uzbekistan, by building very high standard buildings in Uzbekistan. So we should go beyond ensuring seismic safety, which remain a priority for Uzbekistan and both for Turkey. Uzbekistan aims to double construction materials production and export the manufacture of energy efficient products. Turkish investment can support local production of modern glass, ceramics, insulation, heating and cooling systems, elevators and facades. Ladies and gentlemen, the service sector is also important. We know that Turkey has an extensive experience in service sector. Therefore, this is another opportunity where Turkey and Uzbekistan could cooperate, because Turkey is one of the world's leading tourism economies. Our cooperation could include joint hotel projects, destination management, vocational training, medical tourism, and combined travel routes. Then, of course, we also see many more opportunities, including health sector, including the connectivity project that already mentioned. So that's why, to conclude, I would like to to share with 5 practical priorities. First, we should prepare sector-specific industrial roadmaps that identify concrete value chains, projects, investors, localization opportunities, and export markets. Second, we should establish a joint program for high value-added production and exports. Every major investment should support technology transfer, local supply chains, and access to third country markets. Third, we should strengthen business-to-business cooperation, particularly among SMEs, through digital platforms, supply development programs, and sector-specific forums. Fourth, we should develop a joint agenda for logistics, construction, and urban development, covering the middle corridor, logistics centers, green construction. So to say very briefly, I think that Uzbekistan and Turkey cooperation will have a common future, just like mentioned by my colleague, because there are a lot of potential and opportunities for both countries to gain benefits when we establish a mutually strong cooperation aimed at the future prosperity of both countries. Together, we possess the political will, economic capacity, and strategic vision required to make Uzbekistan-Turkey cooperation one of the most dynamic models of partnership across the broader Euro-Asian region. Thank you for your attention.
Mr. Tulyakov, thank you so much. A clear roadmap. So thank you. I'm aware of the time limitation, and all the audience are interested in having a copy, but we have one more speaker from Turkmenistan, Mr. Kakajan Berdiev. Welcome. I think you hear us, right?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Turkmenistan is, especially in the Western Hemisphere, one of the least understood country, because Turkmenistan is a country that everything is well planned, orderly, and I wonder exactly in the sphere of investment, economy, prosperity, development, what sort of roadmap Turkmenistan do have, and also how can we integrate Turkmenistan to the overall picture? So I want to ask this question to you, Mr. Berdiev. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Murat Aslan, for the opportunity. I will try to share my screen and share my presentation. Please bear with me for 5 seconds. Yeah, I assume, we face technical difficulty, but it's not a big deal. I can share the details of my presentation
Please.
later, given that we have a very limited time. So as our keynote speakers and colleagues have mentioned, our region, Turkiye and Central Asia, has enormous yet untapped opportunities. And given that, especially in the last decade or so, the trade among Turkiye and Central Asia increased, and even the trade within Central Asia doubled, as colleagues mentioned. I would like to briefly touch on about the current state of the private sector across the Central Asia, and with regards to what they can offer in order to further deepen our economic and commercial ties among Turkey and Central Asia. So as our colleagues mentioned, the Turkish firms have the biggest and the deepest presence in Kazakhstan, which is more than 4,000 companies. And second and third market is Uzbekistan, and then Turkmenistan, and then the rest of the region. The private companies, to name some of them, are the contracting companies, construction companies like Cengiz, Aksa, Çalık, and others. And also we have some of the emerging Central Asian companies like Kaspi, Haluk, Ariel, Global Textile, and others. Until now, the trade or the engagement of the private companies were mostly came from the Turkish-based companies. So they have invested and they have built and operated in Central Asia far more than the Central Asian firms do in Turkey. And now we have what I say is one of the biggest unrealized opportunity is to help our Central Asian-based companies to scale and invest back, first of all, in the Turkey market. And of course, then by establishing joint companies and ventures, try to explore and increase investments in third countries. So when it comes to the private sector share of the GDP is in Turkey, it's around 80%, and in Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan is around 70%. In Kazakhstan, it's around 63%. In Uzbekistan, also more than 55%. In Tajikistan, the private
Is it possible, or China and the United States will be dominant using the Central Asian critical mineral?
Okay, Mr. Tulyakov, would you like to answer the questions? But very short, please, because
Yes,
there
thank
must
you.
be a break right now.
Thank you very much. If I understood the question correctly, yes. As for the customs collaboration, it's very important, especially for Uzbekistan as a double landlocked country. Connectivity is very important for Uzbekistan, and digitalization, customs, norms unifications are important for Uzbekistan to be linked, especially taking into consideration that earlier the keynote speakers talked that a middle corridor is not an alternative now. It's one of the leading connectivity corridors that we need to refer to. Therefore, there is a huge potential for collaboration in unifying customs norms, in bringing regions closer. As for the critical minerals you mentioned, we see that who is a leader in the world in critical minerals. Of course, it's China. And we see there is a high, let's say, economic activity from China side in the region, not only in Uzbekistan. China is #1 trading partner of the region, #1 investor, #1 country who has the, let's say, businesses in the region. So that's why there is a high interest from the Chinese side. At the same time, we see that the European Union has expressed also strong interest, especially with regard to critical minerals, including the race which was joined by the US also. We see how actively they are promoting this collaboration, especially in terms of critical minerals. And I cannot predict right now how actively Turkey will be using this opportunity of closeness of so many platforms that we have at the region. But we see there is a high competition from different world powers, especially directed at Central Asian countries.
Thank you, Professor Kara. Very short addition. Doctor, you mentioned 2011 article. Yes, my answer is very short. I am not academician in that time. I'm bureaucrat, but the answer is clear and the answer is correct for us. I work Minister of Natural Resources in Denmark for a while. Both of the two questions are same for me, because maybe the answer of first question is also critical minerals. For critical minerals, we make, as a country, as a Turkey, we make some strategy documents and some operations. Sometimes our ministers also explain. And maybe my friend others say about that, we have the holistic view that not only critical minerals as a minerals, but also to going through data centers for digitalization. As also we all emphasize, all countries have some kind of tools for these operations. I want to remind or summary again, not only minerals, but to data central scope, to digitalization, to artificial intelligence scopes here. Thank you so much. And let me add one final thing regarding this rare earth minerals. It's not an easy process. It takes at least 10 to 12 years to build an infrastructure. And think that once you do it, you can maybe achieve some, but not more than 60 or 50% if you do not have the appropriate technology. And currently, that's why China is dominating. So in Kazakhstan, let me give an example. Now there's an Australian company purchased a Kazakh company with a partnership, like 51%, and they want to have the minerals and wants to be exported to the other countries, maybe processed, not fully, but like 50%. But I think Central Asian countries should be careful, because once you sell all these stuff as ore, I think you will lose a lot. I mean, processing is much more important. So rather than selling it imminently, I think processing maybe after selling after 10 years, it's much more appropriate, in my opinion. And for the Customs Union, I totally agree with both our speakers. So let me stop here. I know that it was a very long session, and at 1200 hours, we will have panel 2 with distinguished guests. Please enjoy tea, coffee, and the other offerings in the hall, and let's meet afterwards. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.